Welcome to Dialogues from the President's Corner. I'm your host, Rosemary Pliven, along with Dr. Lawrence Zarda, president of Greensboro College. The mission of the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro is a big one: to inspire giving, maximize opportunities, and strengthen communities for present and future generations. Walker Sanders is the foundation's president, a role he's held for more than 20 years. And Dr. Zarda serves as chair of the foundation's board of directors, and both here today. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we heard the foundation's mission, which is a big one. What does it really mean in practice?
In practice? Mm-hmm. Do we have 30 minutes?
You have like five.
5 minutes. Well, one, thanks. I love this podcast that y'all are doing. It's fun to be on it and to have this conversation. So when I think about the Community Foundation and what our mission really means in practice, we manage about 700 different funds. Each of those funds is an individual story. And our job is to tell the story of those various funds. And so folks that have a lot of resources can set up a fund, or those that don't have many resources can set up a fund. But everybody has a passion for something. And our job is to make that passion come true. So the 700 funds, that represents about $350 million in total assets. We manage a number of endowment funds that we make grants from those funds. And then those grants support a number of different projects throughout the community. And because we make so many different grants, take over 3,000 grants a year, we have relationships in different parts of the community. We're able to bring people together to convene folks to talk about different issues. So we really kind of think about it in three ways. We manage funds for individuals. We make grants from those funds for community projects, and we bring community resources together to address issues. Yeah,
from all over the city. Dr. Zarda, why is it important for you to be a part of the foundation?
Yeah, let me kind of put it in context first. We had an exercise not long ago at the Community Foundation Board about the name of the foundation and what's important and what does it mean to us. And every word has a very specific meaning, of course. But to me and others, the most important is community. It is the one organization in the city where literally every segment of our community is represented, is involved, and somehow benefits from the work of the foundation. In addition, I think we all have heard many times that one of the core businesses, one of the core aspects of Greensboro is that we are a higher education town. There are 7 colleges, universities in the city of Greensboro itself. I sometimes argue there's actually 8 if you count the Center for Creative Leadership, which perhaps we should. But it's very important that higher ed be involved. And I've been fairly active in a number of organizations downtown. But for Greensboro College, as we begin our 187th year, we need to be continue to be engaged as much as we can be in all that's going on downtown, especially with the work of the foundation, which you'll hear about more in a minute.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of these initiatives. You talked about bringing people together and about making grants to make some big changes in Greensboro. Workforce development, that's, of course, a big for both the college and for the city. Let's talk about how you're working together really move the needle on jobs in Greensboro and industry, really.
I think both of us, Greensboro College and the community, are really kind of see the value of apprenticeships and looking at workforce development as kind of more than just graduating high school and going to get a 4-year degree. It's a both and, that we need to make sure people have the skills that they need in terms of the certificates, the professional trainings that they need to have. We've started an effort called Guilford Apprenticeship Partners, which is probably the largest apprenticeship program in the state. And it allows kids to get partnering with a company. They are working at that company. They're able to kind of finish their high school degree, but also begin to get a 2-year associate's degree. And when they graduate, they have a job and they're on a career track. And
that was started with help from the Community Foundation.
That's right. Us and the Chamber are partners in that.
Great.
And if I could add, Governor Cooper's a few years back announced an initiative called My Future NC. Mm-hmm. And the idea was by the year 2030, there would be 400,000 more people in our workforce that have post-secondary high-quality credentials, however you might define that. And there was a definition. Locally, the Community Foundation took the lead in creating sort of our corollary locally called Guilford Jobs 2030, using a slightly different metric to get the proportion of our working population from about 46% with high-quality post-secondary credentials to 60%. And the Community Foundation led that and drove that. And that is now fully engaged. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're making that kind of progress.
Well, and of course, workforce development, a huge push for all of our higher education, including Greensboro College.
It is. And we have talked, obviously, what we're doing in terms of workforce development. But I sat in many of these meetings. I actually chaired the task force. And it's a false dichotomy when we argue college degrees versus technical skills. It's all of the above. We need it all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's talk about let's move downtown, because we talk about all the time how close we are to downtown Greensboro. Greensboro College, 100 steps. That's kind of the metric we use of our distance to downtown. The former News and Records site, it has been a topic of much discussion, and I know the Community Foundation is involved in what might happen to that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. And I want to kind of put that site in context with folks about Greensboro. When you think about downtown Greensboro and how you interact with downtown, we love our Elm Street. We love the historic character of it. It has a lot of personality. A lot of the original storefronts are still there. And when you walk around in downtown, you think Elm Street goes north and south. And if you do anything off Elm Street, you always turn to the west. You never turn to the east. And I've never thought about that until we brought a consultant in looking at the News and Record site. And his observation was, this is the opportunity for Greensboro finally to turn east for development and to connect to NC-A&T and to invest in parts of our community that have been underinvested for years. And so we're looking at the News and Record site as kind of a pivotal development opportunity for Greensboro to redefine how we think about development, how we grow as a city, to really put an emphasis on going towards the east.
Yeah, and when you talk about east, we should say East Market Street. So really, Market Street is kind of the center. Market and Elmwood, you would say, is kind of the center of downtown. So you just turn toward the east and you'll run into the News and Record site, or the former News and Record site. Yeah. And the college, of course, to the west. So we like the west side, too.
Yesterday I had lunch. One of the people at lunch was Frank Gillum, the chancellor of UNCG, and we were talking about our proximity and being near downtown and what we should be doing. And just in chatting, we said, if you took a map of what we call downtown in Greensboro, it's Elm Street. And if you look at it as a map, it looks like the country of Chile. It's just one long road. It's not a square. It's not
right. We're expanding out for sure. All right, let's talk about some other big issues. Housing is, of course, a big issue, and the unhoused, two very different issues that the Community Foundation is working.
Yeah, two different issues, but very related. It's kind of part of that larger ecosystem. And what we've been so focused on as a community is either we talk about the unhoused or we talk about the housing supply, and they're really interrelated to each other. And we need to start thinking about it as an ecosystem around it. And we brought together a group of the unhoused organizations, from the IRC to Urban Ministries and Service Center to the YWCA, the YMCA, Goodwill Industries, Salvation Army. And we quickly realized that the leadership of those organizations meet each other and network with each other to begin thinking about how we can work more cooperative with each other. And those leaders of the organizations, it's not that they didn't want to work together. It's just they were so busy doing what they were doing. They just didn't have time to think collaboratively and think about how we can create a more comprehensive solution to the unhoused situation. And so we've kind of created that. Tim Rice is leading that. Tim is on our board and is leading that effort. And some really great strides are being made in partnerships between the IRC and Urban Ministries, looking at how we can leverage the assets at Goodwill Industries very differently. Grants that the Salvation Army has gotten to make that focus on prevention. So a lot of things will come out of that to do that. And on the other end is that housing supply. The city has kind of created this goal of 10,000 new houses by 2030. And that's a bold goal. And I love that the city wants to do that. But to get there is going to take all of us figuring out what role we can play in doing that. One thing we've done to try to begin kind of moving that ball down the road some is we created a $30 million Greensboro Housing Fund, which is to kind of help incentivize developers to build houses, but also make some of the units that they're developing below market rate rents. And so it's kind of a mixed income housing model where you're trying to not just build market rate units, you also want to have units that are available for teachers or firefighters or police officers to be able to afford to live.
Yeah. And let's talk about senior health, because we know that has become a big focus. We want to take care of our population, and you had a big gift to help with that.
We did. So Charles Buddy Weil left his entire estate to the Community Foundation, and it was a very sizable estate. And one of the last conversations, he was popularly known as Buddy, and it was with Buddy, and he said, "Walker, do you know the size of the Duke Endowment?" And I said, "I do. It's about $4 billion. And he said, "Do you know how much that was funded with?" And I said, "I do. It's about $30 million back in 1928. And he said, "Well, do you know how much I'm going to be giving to the Community Foundation?" And I was looking at his financial statement and said, "I do. And it's more than that." And he said, "Well, what I want to happen is the same thing that the Duke Endowment's doing, but I want it just in Greensboro and not in North and South Carolina." So his vision was to create a fund that would provide capital dollars for the expansion of elder care facilities, and wanted to have the best facilities for elders in the world. And that was his vision. And 50 years from now, when the fund has $600, $700, $800 million in it, Greensboro will be doing some cutting edge things in terms of elder care.
And I would say that Buddy was a former trustee of Greensboro College, and I got to know him a little bit myself. And he was supportive of the college, and no question about that. But whenever I talked to him about perhaps, a legacy gift, he made it clear he had something else in mind.
That's a great legacy. And I also understand he made a special drink. Yeah. Was it there a drink or something?
He did. We had I can't even go through all of it. It's basically a rum drink that it would knock you down if you had more than one.
Okay.
And it was a Buddy special. It had like 151 rum and a couple other different rums.
I remember a story about that, when he made the gift to the foundation. Equity has been a core value of the Community Foundation since the beginning. So how does that drive the work you both do every day?
Well, I think equity has become most recently, it's kind of talked about as a dirty word, unfortunately. And I think the noise that's going on in Washington is something we can't control. But from the community foundation perspective, we can't control what we're doing locally. And equity has always been something that's been core to who we are as a community foundation. In our offices, our pledge to the community is simply that we recognize that our communities are diverse. They include people of all ages and abilities, creeds and religions, cultures and ethnicities, gender identities, national origins, races, sexual orientation, and social economic backgrounds. We've always held that true, and we're always going to hold that true. As a community foundation, as Larry said earlier, community is that key thing in our world. And if we're a community foundation that everyone doesn't feel respected, everyone doesn't feel like they are included, or everyone doesn't feel like they have a voice, then we're not doing our job as a community foundation. So this is not new to us. This is fundamental to who we've always been, and it's fundamental to who we always will be.
And I would add that the board, almost 3 years ago now, made a very serious commitment to equity training for the board, for the staff themselves, and so on. And often you will hear board members talk about everything the Community Foundation does is within the framework of equity. Someone was said almost like we have to learn an accent, that we have an accent that everything we talk about is within that framework of equity for the community.
Yeah, you have to keep going back to it and checking yourself. And that's why you have a board. That's why you have a community to help hold you accountable.
We don't see it as a dirty word. We see it as fundamental to being a good business and being a good steward of the resources that were entrusted to us.
20 years. It's a pretty long time.
It's actually 25.
All right. What keeps you going?
Back when you were in elementary school, I started at the Community Foundation. What keeps me going is this community. My wife and I, when we moved here from Charlotte, we figured we'd be here 5 to 7 years. And we fell in love with Greensboro. We fell in love with the people in Greensboro. We have great friends. And the foundation has been able to grow and thrive over the years and always be able to kind of stretch ourselves to do something a little bit bigger, something a little bit bolder, something a little bit more courageous. And that's what keeps me going, is that strive to kind of continue to be this great organization. I would love to see us do a big project and facilitate something at the News and Record site or something else in downtown. Help do a project that helps do something that nobody has ever been able to do in the entire world, and that is when a student graduates from Guilford County schools, they will graduate with a professional certificate or post-secondary degree. Nobody has been able to accomplish that, but we can accomplish that in Greensboro. And we can do that because we're small enough that we can get our hands around the issue, and we're large enough that we have the resources and the will to get things like that done. And that's what keeps me going.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. Thank you for the work you're doing. Hey, be sure to subscribe to Greensboro College Dialogues from the President's Corner, wherever you watch or listen. Learn more about all the good things happening at the college by following us on social media at Greensboro College and online at greensboro.edu.